Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Ireland once again, and we're going to have a look at a brewery who I have never had anything from before. So for this review we're going to head to County Donegal, which is in the northwestern part of the island. It's part of Ulster, but not part of Northern Ireland. But for this review we've got a brewery that I think will be really quite interesting. So we're going to have a taste of my first beer from Kinnegar Brewing, and these guys market themselves as a farmhouse brewery, which is quite interesting. I mean, obviously we've had the saisons and stuff like this from Belgium for centuries. The New England IPAs were farmhouse beers. A lot of these breweries like Hill Farmstead and Alchemist and things were farmhouse breweries. And of course in Norway now there's the fake IPAs coming out, which are spreading throughout all of Scandinavia. So kind of interesting that to find a farmhouse brewery over in Ireland. But this particular beer is called the Rustbucket. It's a rye ale coming in at 5.1%, and that's another interesting thing because I've tried a lot of rye IPAs and red rye IPAs and things like that, but I think this is the first beer that I've come across that is simply called a rye ale. So very curious to see how this one turns out. I'm curious both about this beer and the brewery, so hopefully it's a good one, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on it. So I thank you as well on this video to Paul Rogers, who's running a company called Dalriada Exports. He's bringing Irish over into Scotland, and he's been doing that for the last couple of years, and he's given me this one and another one from Kinnegar Brewing to take a look at. So it's quite cool to be able to review something a little bit different on the channel for you, and thank you to him for making these reviews possible, and hopefully I can try some more beers from this brewery at some point in the future. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Kinnegar Brewing. You'll see one quite soon, and then hopefully we can do more beyond that in the future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Irish beers that I've reviewed for you, both from the North and from the Republic. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Kinnegar Brewing then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Kinnegar Brewing are based in Donegal, and the company was founded back in 2011 but opened its doors officially in July of 2013. And the two people behind the company are Rick Levert and Libby Carton. So Rick comes from a business background, basically specialising in design and marketing, and he dabbled in homebrewing for a number of years, and he eventually decided that he wanted to turn professional. So he took some brewing courses at the University of California, Davis over in America, and also at VLB in Berlin in Germany too. Libby, I think, I couldn't find out exactly what her background was when I was doing research. It didn't mention in any of the articles and stuff that I read, but I know that she takes part in the brewing and does a lot of the business side of things as well. I think she does a bit of everything, to be honest with you, which is quite common in breweries these days. But the original brewery that they had was in a little place called Rathmullen, and it had a capacity of around 10,000 hectolitres of beer per year, and from the beginning these guys were bottling their beers, but they grew very quickly to the point where their brewing schedule became unsustainable. Apparently they were running the brewery from 4 AM in the morning until midnight using 2 shifts, and I would guess that in that time, you know, if it's 20 hours you can maybe do like 4 brews in that. It just kind of depends, at least 3 per day in that sort of time scale. But they were very much kind of struggling to, you know, have a good working schedule and also meet the demand that they had. So they decided to move to a new brewery in Letterkenny. They've called this K2. They opened this up in March of 2017, and it has a 35,000 hectolitre output, which has allowed them to produce more kind of special and pilot batch beers as well. But they say that their beers are farmhouse, and so they're unfiltered, unpasteurised, and also carbonated naturally in the primary fermentation. As of September 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced around 50 different types of beer according to the Untappd page that I checked out. So yeah, an interesting brewery, this one. This is the first beer, if I remember correctly, that I've tried from Donegal. I think the nearest craft brewery that I've come across to this one before would be Boundary Brewing, which is in Derry, Londonderry, whichever side of that divide you fall into. But yeah, so it's cool to find another brewery that's from the sort of northwest of Ireland, if you like. So cool to be able to review this one for you. Once again, thank you to Paul for giving me this beer to review, and that's all you really need to know about the brewery for the moment. That was all the research that I was able to come up with on these guys, but I'm sure there'll be more news from them at some point in the future. If you want to learn more, of course, check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. If you want to see the beer lists, I'd recommend you check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages as well. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as you can see, there's the nice artwork on it. It's almost a little bit like Paddington Bear, but I think that's meant to be, I think that's actually meant to be like, I don't know if it's a Yorkie, I forget what that breed of dog is. You know, it's one of these things, you see so many different types of dogs around that it's quite difficult to keep up. But there you can see at the top, there is the Kinnegar Brewing symbol on this one, which is the rabbit. So on the side here it says farmhouse beers from Donegal. At Kinnegar we pair brewing tradition with a contemporary sense of adventure to produce clean, crisp and full flavoured beers. The brewery is named after the beach beside its birthplace just north of Rathmullen in County Donegal on Ireland's wild Atlantic Way. Our Rustbucket rye is inspired by an old friend, a real character, an independent spirit but always a faithful companion. This description also fits our friends at the Grianian Theatre, for whom we originally developed this special beer. So yeah, that's pretty cool actually. So it's cool to see them using like local names and things like that too. They used to sell their beers, incidentally, Paul was telling me they used to sell them I think in half-litre bottles. They used 330s for a while as well, I think he said, and it's only quite recently that they've started to change them into cans. So yeah, this is a 440ml can, so you know, it's kind of similar to the American pint, which is 473 millilitres. A lot of UK breweries are using this now, and it's obviously, you know, it's to do with sales and things like that. It's about, it's sort of finding that balance between your transport and you know, it's basically finding your place in the market. I've complained about 440 millilitres on the channel before, but you know, it is a marketing thing. I just like to be awkward. When I do American beer reviews, I like to complain about the American pint and their measurement system not being based on water like the metric system is, but I just like moaning sometimes. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we get on with the tasting. But yeah, nice artwork on this beer. So as you can see, and as you would expect to be honest from Araya, we are used to these being quite rich and reddy amber. This one really is, it's almost like a blood orange colour. You know, this beer is kind of similar in its colour to, for example, like an English bitter. Some of the English bitters I've seen being this colour, and almost like a West Coast double IPA as well. It's got that really rich kind of blood orange amber colour. It's actually not too far off the colour of this this little strip that they've got on the bottom of the label. And I don't know if that's intentional actually, it maybe is, but one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of this one, quite a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. The head, incidentally, I would say, I think it's gone down a little bit, but I would say at the moment it's about a half finger, and in terms of colour, I would describe this one as being sort of like, it's almost like an ivory, slightly fawn colour to be honest with you. It's not perfect white, it's even a little bit more than creamy, but you can really smell some of these nice cereally notes coming off this beer. As I said, 5.1% beer this, it looks very nice. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a little bit of a haziness to this beer, but really, yeah, in terms of appearance, it looks like an English bitter or, you know, a West Coast double IPA, but you would expect rye to give you some nice kind of colour like this one. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this beer. That smells really nice actually. So straight away, you are going to see that this beer is very malt forward in terms of its aroma. It's definitely got this nice kind of brown bready base to it, if you like. You can really smell that just dominating the beer, and again, that's what you'd expect. I used to live in Germany and I was a huge fan of German rye bread, and the aroma in this one really reminds me of that, except it's got a little bit of biscuit and caramel and things kind of mashed into it as well. I'm wondering, from the aroma of this one, I'm really wondering if there's a bit of Cascade hop in here. Cascade, you know, it's a hop that I really quite like. One of my local breweries here in Scotland, they have the Schiehallion Lager, the Harveston brewery, and Cascade was really the first, it really was the first slightly higher alpha acid hop. That's what they were growing over in Yakima Valley and things, when Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and stuff like that was coming out. So for me, this one really is quite, it's it really is quite nostalgic actually, this beer. So let's just try and break this aroma down for you then. Like I say, the base of this beer, it smells like it's that nice kind of rye quality, but it's not overly spicy. It comes across as being quite bready and quite smooth. There's definitely a little bit of a caramelly note in there, a nice kind of light brown sugar. It's not big and syrupy or treacle and molasses or anything like that. It's just quite nice and light. At the same time though, it has a little bit of a toasted quality to it, and there's definitely some nice kind of biscuity notes coming out of this beer as well. A little bit like McVitie's Digestives, to be honest. Quite you like using that descriptor, but you really get that out of this one. At the same time, when you start to take the aroma in a bit more deeply, it's got a little bit of a, it does have a little bit of a toastiness to the grain, but it's nowhere near, like a black malt or something like that. It's just got a little bit of that kind of toasted edge to it, almost kind of similar to what you'd get from like from what you would get from like an English bitter or something like that, or one of the lower shilling beers here in Scotland. But for this review, or for this beer rather, sorry, brain's not working today. For this beer, it really comes across as having a good balance between that bready, grainy base and also a little bit of malty sweetness. There's a good bit of complexity in there. You might get some sort of woody or even slightly nutty undertones coming out of this one. I'd be more tempted to say woody than nutty in fairness, but the aroma in this beer I'm quite impressed with so far. On the hoppy side of things, like I was saying earlier, I do wonder if there's a bit of cascade in here. You've got a little bit of earthiness to it, definitely a nice little bit of a floral and grassy side of things on the green side of the hops. I would say it does have almost a little touch of spiciness in there, but that might be the malt base that's kind of skewing that a little bit. Nice little bit of grassiness around the front of around the top end of the beer, on the front of the aroma if you like, but you've also got some nice kind of juicy, fruity qualities there as well. As I say, I really think there's a bit of cascade in here just from the way the aroma's coming out. It's the floral and grassy notes that give it away, but also some of the fruitiness. So on the fruity side of this beer, I would say it definitely has a little bit of an almost kind of jammy quality. There's almost a wee bit of an orangey note coming out of this one. Could there be a bit of like Amarillo or, Mandarin of Bavaria is the other one. You've got Pacifica from New Zealand. You have all of this. I would think maybe it's more likely to be Amarillo or Mandarin of Bavaria. And I'm just guessing here. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers. But definitely a little bit of an orangey, marmaladey quality to it as well. But you've got some nice kind of reddish fruity notes. I do suspect there's cascade in this one. And you've got some of those nice, it's not really grapefruity, but it's a sort of red, fruity, kind of jammy note that's coming out of this one. A little bit figgy, perhaps, and maybe strawberry-ish, maybe even some appley, peary esters pushing their way out of this beer too. But overall, an interesting beer in terms of its aroma. It comes across as pretty nice and sweet in the aroma, if you like. So as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you taste the beer. But we're going to taste this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Rustbucket IPA. Sorry, just the Rustbucket Rye Ale at 5.1% from Kinnegar Brewing in Letterkenny and Donegal over in Ireland. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. I have to say, that's good. That really is a pretty damn solid beer, I have to say. It's one of these ones, I wasn't quite expecting it to be as smooth and sweet as it is. When you get a rye beer, you do expect it to be a little bit more kind of grainy, but it's very, very nice actually, this one. So thumbs up to Kinnegar Brewing for this one. They've surprised me with this beer. Really wasn't what I was expecting at all. That's really nice. It's almost as if the rye quality is it's almost just like kind of an afterthought of the beer. You do get that nice rye quality coming out of this one in the aftertaste, but really it's a lovely, quite sessionable beer, this one. So let's try and break this flavour down a little bit then. So with this beer, straight away you're going to feel that nice light malty quality, just blanket in the middle of your tongue. It's only when you go further into the aftertaste, I think, that the rye flavours start to push their way out. And as I was kind of picking up from the aroma, it's not really too much of a spicy rye, this one. It really is just quite nice, and it just gives you a little bit of that grainy quality, and it dries out just a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. I really like that, because sometimes The rye ales are difficult, you know, the rye IPAs and stuff like that. We'll just compare it to the rye IPAs because that's what I'm familiar with. But the rye IPA, it can be a very difficult style to get balanced, to be honest. You either have to take the alcohol right up to, you know, to about 8-9% just to have it sweet enough to balance out some of the spiciness, or you can take this approach, and I think this is the more difficult approach, to be honest. So that's another kudos for Kinnegar on this beer. But yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. I think they've done a good job of that. And you know what, the big leaning these days is more towards oats and wheat and all these kind of things. It's cool to see them go and almost be a little bit old school with this beer. And I mean, if they've only been around since 2013, they're only about 6 years old, so it's kind of strange to call a brewery like this a little bit old school. But this is very, very nice. So like you say, that malty quality just blankets the middle of your tongue. It's like a brown bready note, and then the further you go into the aftertaste, it starts to dry out a little bit, and you start to get these kind of rye, these nice rye notes out of it. If you follow the sides of your palate along and then just move inside at almost the front corners of your palate, you're going to notice a little bit of a slightly woody quality to this one, just underpinning it too. If you go to the very, very centre of your tongue, that's where the sweet kind of caramelly notes coming out of this one, and it's definitely a caramel for me. It's not you know, it's not like a toasty brown sugar or anything like that. It's definitely a nice sort of oily caramel that comes out of this beer. Yeah, I do like how that goes together. It really is quite nice. The more you drink of this beer, the more that middle of your palate becomes quite sweet. And the unusual thing about this too is that the oily caramel is sort of dominating the centre of your palate. As you come further out from the centre of your palate, you do start to get the impression of an almost biscuity flavour, and that's it's kind of to do with how long you sort of have the beer on your tongue as well, because the rye starts to push its way out a bit more, and it is giving you that impression of a nice kind of McVitie's digestive sort of biscuity quality there. But as I say, this beer, it really is very smooth and quite sessionable, and I wasn't expecting that from it. You know, I've always said, when I think about rye beers, I often tend to think a little bit about English bitters, and it's not my favourite style, that, but I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again, and because they've just got that graininess of it right. They've just done it really quite well, actually. I do like this one. It gets a thumbs up from me. It's very surprising, but it's a pleasant surprise, and that's what you sometimes get when you're doing these beer reviews. So if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it, because I think you'll be nice and pleasantly surprised with this beer. In the back corners of the palate then, there is a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that earthiness just kind of spreads forward a little bit. There's not really a herbal quality to this, so I don't think they're using English hops in this one, because they're usually the ones that give you that herbal quality. But as you get to the front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a floral aromaticity to this beer. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, in my opinion. The way the floral qualities are coming out, I do suspect they might have used Cascade as the bittering hop. Either that, or it might be something like a German Magnum hop, maybe something like that. Just the way these qualities are coming out. As I say, I always like playing guess the hops with these beers. But behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to roll their way out of the beer. The earthiness in the back corners of your palate here is also quite light and almost slightly sweet, which suits the beer as well. That's something that made me think about it being a German Magnum, because you get that almost German earthiness out of the beer. But behind the front curve of the palate, as I say, you get that oily bubble, and for me, it's basically a mix between a slightly grapefruity note and an orangey note, and that makes me wonder if there's Amarillo or something like that in here, one of the more orangey hops. Yeah. So if you go to the back of that oily bubble, you'll start to get these slightly dark grapefruity flavoured notes out there, the kind of signature, if you like, of Cascade. And as you come further forward, it starts to get a little bit more orangey and oily, and that's what's making me think there might be a bit of Amarillo in here. There's definitely a sort of orangey flavour, marmaladey to this beer. Maybe not quite as sharp and sweet as marmalade, but definitely an orangey flavour on this one. And then as you move towards the front of the tongue, it starts to become a little bit more kind of red fruity, like a little bit of a kind of It's almost like slightly strawberry-ish and figgy, to be honest with you. It's got a nice kind of juicy light red fruity quality to it, this beer. You might be forgiven for, on the front curve of the tongue, thinking there's a little bit of a slightly appley or peary ester to this one, but that's very, very minimal. It's mainly a little bit of grapefruit, good bit of orange in this one, and then a little bit of a kind of jammy red fruity note coming out of this beer. But overall, the way the flavours go together in this one is really, really nice, and I'm just surprised with a rye beer how nicely they can get it actually. Let's just pour the rest of it in and make sure there's no kind of sediment and things that would change it at all. No, not really, because I was wondering, that was the other curious thing about this beer. I was thinking it's suspiciously clear for a sort of rye beer, but I have to say they've done an awesome job of this. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. And yeah, it really is very, very well done. It's not, the other thing I would say after having a few sips of this beer, it's not as big and bready as some of the ones you're going to come across. It's actually very light. This is probably one of the lightest rye beers that I've come across, but as I say, I think they've done an awesome job of this, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would describe this beer as being at the bottom end of mid-bodies. The carbonation's very smooth, and it really does have a very smooth mouthfeel to it. At the same time, it's got a bit of an oily quality, which I think helps some of the caramelly notes and those orangey flavours, and even a bit of the jammy note that I was talking about. But at the same time, it does come across as being quite clean. I've said this about Scottish beers as well as the Norwegian and the Icelandic ones that I review more regularly. But it comes across as having that kind of cleanliness to it, and I'd say that's probably because of the quality of the Irish water, the same as we've got here and the Nordic countries have. In terms of the IBU count and things like that, I think this beer, I think we're talking 40, maybe 50 IBUs at a push, a little bit from the malt base and a little bit from the hops, but nice mix of smoothness and sweetness in the malt base. They are really well balanced, and you've got some nice oily fruity qualities as well, and overall it's just a really nice beer. Quite unusual, but definitely one that I think you want to try for yourself, and this makes me excited for the next one because it's a black rye ale, that one I think, so we'll need to see how we get on with that. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Rustbucket, a rye ale at 5.1% from Kinnegar Brewing in Donegal in Ireland. A really nice beer, and I'm glad that I was able to review this one for you. Thank you again to Paul for making this review possible. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Kinnegar Brewing as well. If you do have any rye ale recommendations, do let me know those too. It'd be interesting to explore this particular style of beer a bit more, if it is indeed more kind of widely spread, but it's a really nice beer, this one, and it's cool to see how they're doing. Now, the one thing I haven't commented too much on is the farmhouse aspect of it, and that's, I would say, this is probably one of the cleaner farmhouse beers that you're going to come across, but I really like it, and I'm sure I'll drink this one again at some point. But let's leave it at that. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Rustbucket Rye Ale from Kinnegar Brewing in Letterkenny in Donegal over in Ireland. Slàinte, skål, cheers.